Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you guys about Vulcun. A lot of people have been asking me about it. What is it? What exactly is fantasy? Do I have to pay? There's all these questions, and I'm here to answer most, if not all of them. So, firstly, the website is vulcun.com, vulcun.com. You press this button to sign up. If you already have an account, then just log in. Just put in this round of information over here. Primary game Dota 2. Do not select League of Legends or Counter-Strike unless you play those. And for the promo code, you can just put in my name, Merlini Dota, on the top right. This is in the case that you want to put in a deposit. This promo code will allow Vulcun to match your deposit up to 100%, up to $1,000 if you are so inclined. So anyways, once you sign up and log in and all that nice stuff, you go over to the homepage and you can check out all the upcoming games and upcoming leagues. I'm doing this right before Star Series Day number 1, and there are a lot of leagues just because the LAN events are generally more popular than the online series. And there's a little chat that you can talk to people with if you like. I personally don't like it, but that's up to you. And for contest rules, if you aren't terribly familiar with a fantasy league, pretty much you're a manager and you have $10,000 to buy whatever players you want for this particular league. And unfortunately, some players are worth more than others. RTZ is going to be worth a lot more than position 5 on Basically Unknown, just because Arteezy's better, and he's generally going to score a lot more points than your position 5 support on Basically Unknown. So aside from picking 8 players, there's something different called a shot caller who earns more points than everybody else, 25% more to be exact. And you also cannot have more than 3 players from the same team. And generally, there'll be like at least 4 teams, I'd say, that play in whatever league you're going to choose. And as far as the scoring goes, how do you maximize your points? Kills are worth +2, deaths are -1, assists are 1.6, and creeps are 0.01. And this is very, very important. This you should probably focus on if you don't want to lose every single league that you participate in. So kills are +2, deaths are -1. So a player that goes 1 for 1, while their KDA might be 1, their points are actually going to be positive, just because kills are worth more than deaths. So you'll have some YOLO players that die a lot, but they'll almost always get kills every time they YOLO. And they'll actually end up with generally a very high amount of kills. And deaths are worth a fair amount. Assists are +1.6, and creeps are 0.01. So 200 creep kills equals 1 kill. So you can kind of see that this favors teams and players that kill a lot. There are teams that creep a lot and actually generally don't go for kills and go for objectives. They might win the game, but they might not get you that many fantasy points. I think a good example is old school Cloud9, who just generally went for objective-based gaming, kind of ignored kills, were usually behind in kills, but ended up winning the game. They might not be your ideal candidates for your fantasy roster. And at the same time, assists are worth a fair amount. So supports do have the option to get a lot of points, sometimes more than the cores, especially if it's a very active one that roams a lot and doesn't die that often. A good example of a hero that might be very good at this is like a support Zeus player who can just press his ult, get 5 assists in a team fight, not even be at risk of dying, and just yield you 8 points with 1 button. That's pretty nice, right? So there is a fair amount of strategy involved, and of course some teams use different strategies against different teams, and some teams are very closely matched and take the game very, very long. Generally, longer games will give you more creeps, more assists, more kills, and some teams also tend to GG out way later than other teams. Well, some teams are just very quick, like 20-minute GG. And a good example of this is Moscow 5. You might not want to bet on them just because sometimes they're just like, okay, screw this. And I think that was a team that actually like had that snowball up that cliff at like before the creeps even spawned. So there's a lot of variance in scoring. And How expensive are players? This will generally depend, but generally the more popular the player is and the better the player is, the more expensive they're going to be. And it's up to you to look for the ones that are overpriced. And you're like, well, I want Arteezy, but he's half my salary. He's $5,000. I can't even get any other players if I get him. So, and then at the same time, there's like other players like Ice who I think are a little bit undervalued. He's like 850 or something like that. That's pretty cheap for a player less than 1/8 of your entire roster, and I think that he generally performs pretty well too. So it's your job to look for players that are overvalued or undervalued. How do they deal with cancellations, player substitutions, DDoSing, and whatnot? So if a game is DDoSed in the event that a scheduled game is canceled, preempted, or postponed for any reason after the start of the contest, no points will be awarded and entry fees will be refunded. It's not an ideal solution just because ideally there wouldn't be any DDoSes, but at least they have a solution. In regards for player substitutions, you'll have those teams that have like stand-ins every game, and if the player that you choose sits out, you get 0 points. And I know that may come as a surprise to some of you, but consider the case that 2 players sub in for a team. How do they decide which player is in replaces which player? Sometimes they switch up roles, sometimes it's like 2 supports. Like it's far too difficult, and I think that's the best way for Vulcun to handle it. It's just simply, okay, if they're not playing, then don't do it. And if you don't like that risk, that's okay. You should just maybe draft for LAN events where the rosters are generally pretty well known and stand-ins and substitutions are announced days, if not weeks beforehand. Aside from that, all these are pretty standard. You can, again, check the contest rules if you're interested in that. If you have any questions, there's a nice and brief FAQ listed on the bottom. I've actually participated quite a bit since I first started. I think I started on the 9th of April and up to the 22nd, so that is 14 days. I've participated in 47 leagues. That's about 3.5 a day. Some of them are repeats though, like for Red Bull I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Red Bull ones, just because I'm pretty confident in what I thought was good picks for Red Bull. And I won a couple of the head-to-heads. In terms of like leagues, it ranges from like 2-player, which is heads up, or sometimes there's like a few thousand for like the really cheap leagues or the free leagues. So how much you win is dependent on that, and of course the entry fee. Again, there are free leagues. If you don't want to put any money in, that is completely okay. Also, you can keep track of the games live, and the active entries are updated every 60 seconds. So you can watch the Twitch stream here, as well as have your fantasy league automatically calculated on the site. There's a chat on the right side if you want to talk to other people. I generally don't really chat there too much, so I think sometimes they're talking about different games which I'm not participating in. And overall, I think I started with $50 and I'm down to about 36 now, but at the same time I put a lot into Star Series. I put in maybe around $40-50 in, because I'm pretty confident in my knowledge of these teams, although that may backfire. Sometimes I have pretty bad luck when it comes to these things, but it's a fun thing to play with your friends. A couple of my real life friends play too, and it's just like, oh, who are you gonna pick for this? And it was particularly exciting for the last LAN, which was MLG. It's like, well, EG did terribly in the group stage. Are they going to be able to pull back? Sumail did awfully. I regret picking him. Am I supposed to pick him the next day? Do you think they're going to go all the way? Should I hedge my bets and put some stock into NIP? Empire's only going to play one best of 3, which is the finals. Are they worth picking over to some other teams, especially since they're so expensive? So it's fun to talk about. It's fun to partake in. It makes the competitive scene a little bit more lively. I know a lot of you guys are kind of like, oh man, 6.83 again, troll sniper again, oh my goodness. And this is a nice way to spice things up, although patch 6.84 will be coming very shortly after this LAN event. But in the meanwhile, you can sign up for Vulcun. Again, vulcun.com, click on the top right, sign up. You can use my promo code of Merlini Dota on the right side, where they will match your deposit bonus if you choose to put in a deposit. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoy Vulcun and will be partaking in the Star Series. Hope to see you there too. Have a good one.